2014 meeting of the Transportation Licensing Commission. If you'll please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Pursuant to the provisions of Section 2.68.030 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws, notice is hereby given that if you are not satisfied with the decision made by the Metropolitan Licensing Commission, you may appeal the decision by petitioning for a writ of certiorari with the Davidson County Chancery or Circuit Court. Your appeal must be filed within 60 days of the date of the entry of the Metropolitan Transportation Licensing Commission's decision. We advise that you seek your own independent legal advice to ensure that your appeal is filed in a timely manner and that all procedural requirements have been met. Before today's meeting, Mr. Fields circulated to us a copy, a draft of last month's minutes. Have the commissioners had a chance to review those minutes?
Move for approval.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. First item of substance on our agenda today, we have a public hearing to consider TLC Taxicab Rule 7B regarding minimum limits of liability insurance requirements, insurance ratings, and rating agencies. Mr. Fields?
Yes. Probably 3 weeks ago, several of the companies asked that we hold a public hearing to review Taxicab Rule 7B. Taxicab Rule 7B is related to the level of liability insurance each taxicab must have, as well as uninsured motorist insurance, as well as the rating and the rating company. The companies expressed some concern that on September the 1st, the increase currently it's $5,150 for each taxicab in terms of liability insurance, but then on September 1st it would raise to $100,350. They described to me that this was going to be a very difficult increase for the cab drivers based on what all has been going on the last year or so with the industry, and they've asked that the public, that the Transportation Licensing Commission take up the issue of the entire rule of 7B.
And I see we've got a number of people who've asked to speak, including the Honorable Councilperson Berry. Mm-hmm. Is there also someone here from Demotech?
There are actually several out-of-town guests who have come to address the commission.
Have they filled out a request to
did.
speak? Great. By tradition and respect, we'll ask that the Honorable Councilwoman Ms. Berry speak first, so we're going to allow her to leave after she finishes speaking.
I thank you very much for letting me go first, and I think it's a real honor to appear before you today. I really do appreciate citizen-run commissions. It's what makes our government run so effectively and efficiently. There are two items before you, and you have a letter that I've given you today pursuant to the rule that Director Fields just described, and I'd like to stand today in support of two of those issues. One is the expansion of the insurance for consideration with other carriers so that our taxi drivers have an opportunity to compete in the competitive market for a rate. And the second is related to the actual increase in the insurance. After having conversations with Director Fields, I feel that we can meet the safety requirements that we need for our citizens and our visitors at the current taxi level insurance minimums. And I would ask the Commission to consider that and to take my letter under consideration. And I thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, Billy, for not using the timer.
All right, we've got a number of people who have requested to speak. We're going to enforce a 2-minute time limit on your presentation. We've got a number of people who would like to speak. I think we understand the issues, but certainly want to give you the opportunity to address specific concerns or thoughts you might have. I'm going to go in the order of the stack here. The first person, I've got Mr. Doug Trimble.
Mr. Chairman, it does not make a noise, it just flashes.
Great.
I don't think we could top what Ms. Berry said. We're in agreement. Mr. Fields is in agreement with us that the limitations are where they need to be. In December of 2013, they were doubled. I think a couple of the insurance agents are here is going to speak that pertaining to the amount of accidents that's maxed out against our old limitations, which is very, very few. We doubled those limitations in 2013. I think the actual cab owner right now pays probably $360 something a month. If we put this increase on them at this time, we're looking at another 20% minimum, and they just can't. They can't handle it. It's really rough right now on the average cab owner. But Miss Berry said it all, and we appreciate her for being here at several of our requests. And we just ask you to leave the limitations where they are. The old limitations, as we said, the insurance agents are going to testify to the fact that they was, very rarely maxed out at the old limitations, and we doubled them in 2013, and they're, in all of our opinions, they're just absolutely perfect right now. So we ask that you consider to leave them where they are and put this to rest. Thank you.
Mr. Habib Al-Shawawi.
Good evening. My name is Habib Al-Shawi. I'm one from Checker cab driver. Actually, I own about 20 cars, and most of the driver they working with me like they are very old driver and they are very seniority driver. If you guys gonna raise the insurance, I have to raise the money from them. It's really barely to make the money in this day, as you know, like too many competition like Uber, Lyft, and they are really dying in the street to make the money. If you're gonna, like now the insurance, each time we have to review the insurance, we have to pay the down payment, which is $10,000, $11,000, which is really hard to. I will really ask you to leave it the way it is. It probably is better. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Joseph Petrelli with Demotech.
Good afternoon. My name is Joe Petrelli. I'm the president and co-founder of Demotech. I submitted some materials in advance. I'll stay within my 2 minutes. We are an insurance rating service. We were incorporated in 1985. We started doing ratings in 1989. We've been issuing insurance company ratings for the last 24 years. I think today the number of carriers we review and rates over 400. Includes companies within the Nationwide families and the Allstate families. Our ratings are widely accepted in the secondary mortgage marketplace by thousands of lenders, umbrella insurance markets, including companies that are within Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway Insurance Group, premium finance companies, insurance agency, and carriers. I think there was an article dated August 14th, 2 weeks ago, that I included with my testimony, summarizes the situation that many national carriers writing commercial automobile liability insurance are raising their premiums. According to the article, premiums are going up to cover current losses as well as past losses. The article implies that larger publicly traded national carriers may also be responding to shareholder pressure to increase dividends or appreciate the value in their stock holdings. Our company would bring new companies to the competitive marketplace that utilize risk management, vehicle maintenance, employees training and screening to mitigate both the number of accidents as well as the severity of accidents. By expanding the current insurance rating requirements to include us, the Nashville Taxi Licensing Commission would permit and encourage insurers focused on controlling costs rather than just passing them on to the owners and operators that serve your community. I have some additional documentation if you'd like to see it, and I thank you for your time. I'll be available for questions later if you're so inclined.
I've got some questions.
Yes, sir.
Now, have you mentioned in your submission that expanding the minimum rating to allow a Demotech rating of A or higher would bring additional carriers into the mix for the taxi cab companies and the drivers. Have you looked at what impact that would have on the premiums? Have you gone to any of the carriers that presumably would be in the mix but aren't now to find out what premiums would be?
That's a little deeper dive than we normally do, because we are always focused on the financial strength of the company, as opposed to which is a factor of the premiums they charge. However, that being said, I think in contrast to the companies referenced in the article that was on my submission, where the companies have legacy losses that they're trying to recoup, the companies that we review and are working with that would come to your marketplace do not have those legacy losses. They'd be coming in clean with good underwriting programs, good technology to assist them, good risk management programs, and from what I've seen, they're also much more flexible in the approaches that they use working with the owner and operators in terms of the use of self-funding of deductibles, and working with them on a prospective basis, so that they are perhaps given a discounted premium at the front end, so long as their loss experience remains within the limit that was accepted. So I think in terms of the risk management programs, the willingness to work with deductibles, and the willingness to work with companies on pricing and payment plans, I think that the companies that we would add to the mix in Nashville would in fact enhance premium competition to lower it for owner-operators.
Okay.
How many ratings does Demotech have?
We review and rate more than 400 companies.
No, meaning A, B, C.
A double prime is our top rating, A prime is our second rating, A is our third rating, and we have 3 ratings below A, S, M, and L, but we do not support the companies with the S, M, and L ratings.
Okay.
Approximately 75% of the companies that work with us qualify for an A or better. To put that into perspective, according to the published reports, AM Best Company, 95% of the companies are rated secure or better. We only rate 75% of the companies we work with stable or better, which would be our A, A prime, and A double prime.
A and above, how many companies out of that 400 would that represent?
From our perspective, it's all the companies. We don't support companies
don't
below
support
the A
them,
level.
okay.
They are just dismissed. Our business model is to only support the companies that secure a stable rating or above.
Okay. Now, out of those 400 companies, how many new entrants could we get into the Nashville market?
I'm aware of at least 3.
Okay.
And
they've never been here before.
That's my understanding, yes, sir. Because they were currently unacceptable under the current insurance rating requirements.
Okay. Thank you.
Right now, the level is of having an AM Best rating of B+ or higher. What is there an equivalent rating from Demotech to the B+ standard?
Well, it's difficult for me to comment on what they're doing. However, our internal studies have shown that our rating of A, the companies that we rate A have a longer and better survival rate than the companies rated B+ by AM Best, based upon the statistics they publish for their company. So our A rating would be, in terms of survival and the ability of that company to honor a meritorious claim, our rating of A would be at least as good, if not better, in terms of survival of the companies than a B+, sir.
Mr. Petrelli, when you're doing your analysis of insurance companies, how does that differ from AM Best's analysis process?
Well, I guess from my perspective, sir, I really don't know what they do. However,
What do you do?
What we do is we look at every company we look at is pre-screened with a financial model that is quantitative. We do not have qualitative factors involved in our ratings, so that everything is about fundamentals, balance sheet strength, income statement strength, and what we look at every quarter is we make sure that the companies are going to be financially stable. We make sure that the companies...
What do you use to analyze financially stable?
We have a financial model that we have developed internally, and it has been vetted. It's been vetted by Fannie Mae, and internally at Fannie Mae, and by their independent consultant. It was vetted at Federal Home Loan Mortgage Corporation and their external consultant, and it was also vetted by an external consultant of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development when they approved us for ratings back in the late 80s, early 90s.
I know AM Best looks at the amount of capital the company has and the amount of outstanding liabilities the company has to determine financial stability.
Yes, sir.
I haven't heard you talk about that in your analysis yet.
We do that. We do all of that, sir. We look at the liabilities of the company. As a matter of fact, the data would indicate that we are much more concerned about loss reserve adequacy, that the company's book reserves at an adequate level. We have zero tolerance for inadequate loss reserves, which is one of the primary drivers of the insolvency of companies. We have zero tolerance. They have some tolerance. We have none. We're always looking at the liquidity of assets. We also look for smaller companies that often lay off part of that risk in what's called reinsurance. We also look at the type of reinsurance they purchase and the reinsurers that they purchase it from. So we look at both the quality of their reinsurance as well as the quantity of their reinsurance. We do a quarterly statement analysis of liquidity, of loss reserve integrity, financial leverage. We have actuaries on staff, we have CPAs on staff, we have chartered financial analysts on staff, and we have CPCUs on staff. So we are looking at all the basic blocking and tackling fundamentals in that financial statement on a regular basis.
What other municipalities have you been approved for?
To the best of my knowledge and belief, I know we've been approved in Portland, and I'll be candid, I think there's other people that will be presenting that might be able to speak to that, but there is a host of cities that have accepted us, and in addition, our ratings have been accepted by numerous organizations, whether the Taxi Cab Licensing Commission or other entities. Matter of fact, one of the, there's a website.
Just what other cities?
I don't know, sir.
Okay.
There's a large, some of the other folks will be able to speak to that.
Okay.
But I know there's been other cities approved, and we're constantly fighting the monopoly of AM Best Company. So I'm sensitive to that, but yes, sir, we have been approved in many other jurisdictions, and I believe those population centers are at least as large as Nashville.
The only one you know of is Portland.
No, sir. There's others. I just can't recollect them right now, sir, but there's many of them. We're constantly fighting a monopoly.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Peter Foley.
Thank you. Pleasure. My name is Peter H. Foley. All right, I'm the founder and president of Onyx Insurance Company, a risk retention group. And let me preface, there's a lot of misinformation about risk retention groups. They are actually insurance companies. They're actually come under the Federal Act, all right, and they're owned by their insureds. So our insureds that we take on board actually own the company. We just work on managing it. We're a Tennessee domiciled insurance company, which received its license to write commercial automobile insurance on July 16th, 2013. All right. Prior to founding Onyx, I've worked with Demotech for over 20 years. During this time, their detailed and credible analysis and support for the specialist and new insurance companies you heard from Mr. Petrelli, like Onyx, to meet the market demands, provide a viable insurance product, has been invaluable for a number of us. As a relatively new company, other rating agencies, particularly AM Best, will not consider providing a rating for us for at least 2, 3, or maybe 5 years. And a lot of that's dependent upon not only just objective factors, but also certainly subjective factors. Today, as we all know, the public livery industry is going through some very major, profound changes. All right, independent owner-operators to large fleets are being confronted by a constricting insurance market, price manipulation and adjustments, as well as the challenges of the transportation network companies, rideshares, the Ubers, the Lyfts of the world, which is something we've worked with the PUC in the state of California on trying to level that playing field. Onyx is registered in the state, in addition to its state of domicile, Tennessee, to operate in 13 other states. Through its A rating from Demotech, we operate in such cities, including the respective airports of Sacramento, California, San Francisco, San Jose, Reno, Cincinnati, Columbus, Akron, Charlotte, Raleigh-Durham, Arlington, Philadelphia, a number of New Jersey cities, and also recently got approved by Portland, city of Portland in Oregon. Closing, I and our producers and insureds have found Demotech and their support for our company to be invaluable, allowing Onyx to respond to a growing market need. Since our last comment, since our founding, all right, we underwrite anywhere from the single owner-operator all the way up to the large fleets. And we will look at each fleet or each owner-operator on their own experience and evaluate them on that basis. And today we have approximately 1,700 basically vehicles in a total of about 240 fleets around the country. And the one place we're missing, of course, is Tennessee. So, and with that, thank you very much.
Sir, how much, so you would insure taxi drivers directly, is that correct?
And through independent agents, selectively
Okay.
through independent agents.
So on the 50, 100, 50, I believe that's where we're currently at, how much do you estimate that premium to be?
It vary by the experience of that individual operator fleet. And it vary, I mean, so it's just, I don't want to pick a number, but.
Right. Do you have any idea of the savings involved by this commission switching their rating to Demotech?
Well, we've seen another, let's say Charlotte, let's pick Charlotte, where we looked at a fleet, very good, well-run fleet, and the equivalent of their pricing was about $4,000 from a, not at a 50, 100 different limit, but they're from a trust company. We came in there, looked at an individual risk basis. We gave them a couple different structures, including first dollar or deductible, small deductible, and we saved them probably about $800, but they used our deductible. Also, we mandate all of our vehicles have the dual lens camera. All right, that's continuous recording. Not only does it protect the driver from certainly abuse, muggings, but also proves who's at fault. So we know very quickly, we're at fault, we pay the loss. We're not at fault, we're going to challenge that.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. I'm going to mispronounce your name because I'm having a hard time reading it, but Mr. Cheru Tareves. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Charu Tarrafa. I'm the president of Ethio American Insurance Company, domiciled in the state of Georgia. We've been accepted and admitted to the state of Tennessee, and we have also an application pending in the state of Texas. Even though that we've been admitted to the state of Tennessee, we've been trying to sell insurance for the last 1.5 years, but we could not sell the insurance because of the AM-based requirement. And so my suggestion to you, and I don't pretend to be an advisor or anything for that sort, but at least there should be a couple of perspectives that insurance companies should be judged from. One is the track record or the history of these insurance companies is, or their credential should be looked at. Secondly, I think the question of AM-based rating and its relevance to the carriers that write insurance policies for taxi cab should be questioned. Now, if you look at our credential, you will be impressed with us. Before I go into our credential, let me tell you, I used to drive a cab back in the 70s. After driving for a few years, I bought a cab company. And I managed that cab company for about 23 years. So I really can speak of the needs of taxi cabs as well as cab companies. Now, to mitigate the cost of insurance, the insurance situation back in the 80s was really the same situation like it is right now here in Nashville. Insurance was very, very expensive, and the drivers were crying. 60% of the revenue of the company was going for insurance. You can imagine that. Just to mitigate that cost, I set up a self-insurance company for my company in 1980. I ran that self-insurance program for about 17 years. And in 1996, I upgraded the self-insurance program by converting it into a captive insurance company.
I'm sorry, Mr. Tarifi. I'm going to have to ask you to conclude. You've used up your 2 minutes. If you could wrap up.
Okay,
please.
thank you very much. I didn't know that I have that kind of time limitation. Okay, anyway, I think we should be judged by our credential as well as the relevance of AM-based rating should be questioned. Now, lots of things. I've been dealing with these rating companies for the last 2 years. Best does not really address the issue of carriers that write taxi cab policies. So I chose Demotech. I chose Demotech for several reasons. One of them is their cost. The second one is that they ask relevant questions only that small business people like us with our small insurance computers can produce. The third is that it's much, much easier to communicate with Demotech than with this AM-based giant. You can call the president of Demotech anytime you want to, and if you can talk to him right away, you can talk to him. If not, you can leave a message and he will return your call. So I suggest that you at least use Demotech instead of AM-based. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Emmanuel Ari. Mr. David McIndu.
Hi, my name is Dave McIndoe with Greater Nashville Insurance in Nashville, Tennessee. We are an independent agent that sells taxi insurance along with a full line of supporting commercial and personal lines insurance. Along with Ms. Berry, we agree that it should be left the way it is. On September 1, we were told the limits could be going up. The 100 limits went into effect in January. In 7 months, we're going to go up. The actuary asked you wouldn't have a very good rating of cost. They wouldn't have enough data to give a fair cost. So I think it should stay the 5,100 for a period of time to let everything work its way out. The claims, see where we're at on the rate structure, be it need to go up, be it need to go down. I think there's a lot of talk about AM Best and my E&O insurance. If you're an attorney, you have E&O insurance as well. My E&O insurance requires me to carry AM Best, period. They've been in business for well over 100 years. They have the data, they have the support. Metro, Nashville requires all other departments to use an A-rated carriers through AM Best. Y'all have allowed to go to B+, AM Best, so you've allowed some other markets to come and play. But the Metro Nashville requires an A-rated company through AM Best. If I don't have AM Best on my E&O insurance, there's a huge long supplemental insurance form I have to fill out, and it does affect my rates going up. So thank you for your time, and we agree with Ms. Perry, just stay where it's at. Thank you. Any questions?
I have one question.
Sure.
And I realize the rates are going up here relatively quickly in terms of when this this first increase occurred, but didn't we push that back at the request of cab drivers when that would become effective, and that's what shortened the span between the initial raise and then the second raise? Is that right, Mr.? Okay.
And at that time, that's when I spoke and said that we would need at least a full year of data for the actuaries of the companies, all the companies,
to assess
where they're at on the rate.
Increase.
If you're charging $1,500 for XYZ and there's no claims and it should be $1,300, then they should get that money back. And vice versa, if it's $1,700, there should be a way out there as well.
But the reason they're crunching together is because we had granted the request for extra time for everybody to get everything in line.
Yes, I believe that.
And I think some of the requests were coming from the insurance companies as well.
We were ready to go back in May. Okay. So I'm not going to speak on that behalf, but we were ready to go back in May with both of our carriers that we support.
Thanks.
Mr. Michael Kaiser.
Good afternoon. I drive for Nashville Cab, and my cost for insurance is $4,455. Clean driving record, that's for a whole year. It's $85.68 a week. So that's a large expense out of my pocket. If there's a way for us to save money by going with Demotech or whatever company it is, it would be great for me, because just to drive my cab to work for that company, I pay them $17,559 a year. So thank you for putting all those extra cabs on the street. Thank you for letting Lyft and Uber operate. It comes out of my pocket any way you look at it. Thank you.
Mr. Bruce Giles.
Hello again. I don't know if you remember me from some of the other discussions on this. I'm with Atlas Financial. We do business in Tennessee under American Service Insurance Company. We're currently rated B by AM Best. We had been writing cabs here locally for quite some time until the whole issue rose its ugly head the last time. I think if you check with your state insurance department, you will find that our complaint record was exemplary during that time. We wrote several of the cab companies here. They enjoyed having our service. Also, I would agree with several of the gentlemen that spoke before me that taxi insurance across the country is becoming more and more difficult for people to purchase. To that end, the city of Seattle, and you can check on this, recently amended their rule to allow B-rated carriers to write taxi insurance there because there was a lack of markets. You're essentially down to, I believe, 2 markets here today. If something was to happen with one of those, now you've got a monopoly. So I would strongly suggest that you consider lowering it to a B. You could put some additional financial requirements on that a certain amount of surplus, 50 million, 75 million, pick a number, to make sure there is some additional financial wherewithal there. But I would strongly suggest that you consider lowering it to a B to increase the competition and help these gentlemen here with some more competitive rates.
Is Atlas Financial rated by Demotech?
No, we're not.
Now, do I understand each of the companies like Atlas and others, they actually pay someone to do a rating of them?
Yes, we do have a financial obligation to AM Best for them to take the time to rate us.
All right, so you pay them for the service to rate you?
Absolutely.
All right. Can you also pay Demotech to rate you?
I believe we could, yes.
So you could have Standard & Poor, Demotech, or any of these other ones that are on the table?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. Give me a rough idea how much you have to pay to get rated.
I'm not sure how much we do pay AM Best. It's based on your premium writings. Mm-hmm. There's a sliding scale. I don't know what our fee is today. Okay. We're currently writing a little over $100 million in total premiums. We've got over 9,500 policies in force across the country.
Okay. Thank you.
Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Giles. Miss Angela Moyd.
Good afternoon. I'm a driver with 10 Cab, and this morning I paid $410 in insurance rate to my insurance carrier, and they're sitting right here as a matter of fact. That's 3 times the amount that I would pay for full coverage insurance on that same vehicle if it was non-commercial insurance. And the thing about that is the insurance that I have for my taxi is actually worse, because if I'm in an accident, I'm not covered. We had an incident right here in Nashville where a driver was accompanying another driver. The driver behind the wheel was ill and he crashed his taxi cab. The other driver, however, she was also hurt. She was out of work for 3 months. The insurance company did not cover her. So she was still responsible for her mortgage, her medical expenses, all the other expenses, and she was also responsible to pay her franchise fee to the taxi cab companies. The taxi companies in Nashville provide a very, very valuable service to our guests. And we're asking you today to please not increase the insurance rate. With the addition of Uber, Lyft, pedal taxis, the shuttles, all of the other transportation options in Nashville, with all of those services, without the services of our taxi cab companies, our city would be crippled. We need our taxi cab drivers, but we also need to make a living out there. We thank you for your time today, and we ask you to please not increase our rates. Thank you.
Mr. Mohammed Dirihi.
Good afternoon. My name is Mohammed Dirihi, and I am the manager of TENCAB. First of all, I would like to say thank you for the commission for granting us the number of permits that we have requested last time. Also, I would like to say something, the increase of the insurance limitation. I have one driver that the insurance company, when they send, when they are increasing his premium, they send him like $560 a month. And it's right here. Without asking, without even advance notice, they said, this is your increase. You have to pay September 10. It's $560. And right now what they pay is almost like $390, $400, $450. So I would like to request the commission to review two things. Number one, the rating. If they can decrease the rating, we will get more insurance company, so we will have a more market, so we can go for a different insurance companies. The other thing I would like to say is even the increase that we had last year, which 50, 150, that was even too much. So if we can go back to the original, which was 15, 25, 15, that will be really appreciated. If not, we have to open the market for more insurance company so we can go at different companies. The insurance that we have right now in the city, they feel that they have a monopoly in the city. So even without advance notice, without anything, they just increase the way they like to increase. And I would like to say thank you.
Did I see that quote?
Yes.
That you were referring to?
Was that driver involved in any incidents? No accidents?
No accident.
Last 3 years?
No.
Last 5?
I don't know last 5, but last years.
Okay.
That quote is for what kind of coverage? What amounts?
I think the increase.
The increase, you
Yes.
think? 'Cause
Yes.
I didn't see it on there.
Even they did not tell him that it's going to be the increase, but they knew the increase will be up on September, so that's why they sent this in advance.
And you say typically they pay somewhere between $380 to
No,
$400?
typically they pay $350 to $400 and something like that.
So it'd be increased to $500, so it's $100 a month.
Well, no, $560.
That's even more.
Yeah,
That's a lot of money.
it's 40% increase.
Yeah. It's a huge increase.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Tad Essa.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for giving me opportunity. Like everybody says, I like the insurance, the way it is now. I don't want to see any, going up because, as you know, we have a lot of unfair market going on. So our market is the taxi industry market is way down. So the drivers or owners, everybody here sitting is every day it's hard to make a living. Please do something about this thing. So please don't increase the insurance, and also give some new insurance companies chance. So we will have a left and right, we can compete, or we're gonna go which one is the best for us. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Nathan Spears.
I'm Nathan Spears with the Genie Insurance Agency, and we've been riding cabs in Nashville since 2007. with a carrier that's been in the market since 2003. I do have some data with me as well today. There are misconceptions about the marketplace. Foremost, something I hear often is that there's only, one or two, three companies that will write this insurance, and that's not true. There are roughly 6 or 7 B+ rated or better carriers that will write it. The difference is that they charge considerably more than the 2 to 3 most competitive carriers that we have at this time. As Mr. McIndoe indicated, the city has a standard for virtually everything else when you contract with Nashville, and that's a best rating requirement of A- or better. For limos, it's A- or better. Now, as I've told the commissioners before, there is pie in the sky and then there's reality. I do feel that, the B+ rating consideration is the city being flexible and, complementing that. Sometimes timing is everything. And right now, the timing, in my opinion, is not good to increase the current liability limit to the 100, 300, and 100. And also we have data that would support that the 50, 150 limit is adequate. We argued in 2008 that limits lower than that had even been adequate, with very few exceptions. So the AM Best standard is the benchmark. I'm not familiar with Demotech. It's nothing personal, but in our industry, AM Best is the benchmark. And so with that, I think the limits should stay where they're at, or at least be deferred indefinitely. We can revisit it, have another look at it, and I think the best rating standard should stay where it's at. Again, there are multiple carriers that will write it. It's just a matter of money and also reality. And I'll be happy to show you guys the loss ratio that my top carrier closed with last year. Yeah, sure. This is where we're at so far this year, and this is where we're at last year. What that represents is every dollar they took in premium, the percentage they paid back in claims. Look where it is today.
Well,
So for every $100 taken in, last year $66 was paid out. For every $100 this year, 97 is being paid out in claims.
Imagine if every hour you bill for, you get 66% of that back. In lieu of expenses. That's just the reality.
Are claims up this year?
At this point, yeah, pretty bad.
Is that what explains the difference? Is that what explains the increase in the...
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
126.89.
So far.
So there are less.
Oh, I see.
This was at this time last year, you had 126 total claims.
Yes.
And this year you have 89, same time.
Yeah, and that's for this market.
Or is it 126 actually for the whole year of 2013?
Correct.
Okay.
And that's just for your agency?
Correct.
Mr. McIndoe, do you know about the losses?
I give you a number, but it'll be right.
I got you.
And as far as the ratings requirement is concerned, it's not arbitrary. We had to set the bar somewhere, and you guys have made an exception at B+. If we were in smaller markets with lower limits, perhaps you could consider something less than that. But as I showed you guys last year, the documentation, the difference just from a B+ to a B is exponential. One of the carriers I was working with had an A rating, an A- rating actually, and over the course of a year, they got downgraded to a C+. So that's just a prime example of why ratings are significant. Cheaper's not better, it's just cheaper. We want everyone to make as much money as they possibly can. I don't make a living by charging as much as I can for insurance. I make a living by having as many customers as I can. So This is testimony of someone who's been in this market for 7 years. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer. Thank you.
Not anymore, Mr. Spears.
Well, I mean, just to share the info. Just putting it all out on the table. You guys have any questions? Thank you.
Mr. Jim Burrow.
Is there statute of limitations?
Ladies and gentlemen, with Pink Taxi, and I, like most people here, I oppose the increase. I'm a company owner as well as I own some cars, and it's about $100 a week or better. That's what we're paying. And it doesn't sound like much, but it's a lot over the course of a year's time. And I think we need to open the market up, get some more competition, and see if we can get the rates to stabilize or go down a little bit maybe. They're pretty high. I've been in the business for 30 years, and I've seen them go up, 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 just like this. And I might mention that there hadn't been a meter increase for a taxi driver in, I believe, over 11 years. So there's no way for a driver to recoup increases of any kind. He just keeps working for the same money. And his charges are going up all the time. And I think what we have is adequate. I haven't seen much problem with it in my experience in the business. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The last meter increase was in 2003. There was a surcharge placed that you allowed on the meter for gasoline a few years ago that has expired 2011 or 2012.
Well, fuel's going down.
I'm sorry?
Fuel prices.
Fuel has gone down since then, yes.
Cab's gotten more efficient with hybrid options and other things.
Mr. Dinbin? I'm sorry,
I'm Adriana.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I guess the problem has been stated by different groups. Maybe the way we present it could be different. Otherwise, the increase of the insurance will affect every individual. I remember previously we have been asking dear commissioners to give us numbers to stay on the road. But this time we have got a very high concern that will be out of the road because of a lot of pressure that is affecting our business. In the taxi industry, as you have heard of it, but practically we feel it because we are in the business. The taxi industry, especially for the last 6 months or 7 months, it has totally been messed up because of unregulated and unlimited number of taxi drivers. But on top of that pressure, the increase of the insurance will affect our income or our daily livelihood revenue. This will lead us in the very near future to be out of the business. Of course, the outcome will go to be a burden for the city. Maybe if people are not working, all these drivers are not working and are not making, they couldn't commit, they couldn't fulfill their commitment, and as a result of failing to fulfill their commitment, the outcome will be a burden for the city looking for unemployment and other financial assistance from the government. So I sincerely address this issue for not increasing the insurance. Thank you so much.
Mr. Kar Ahmed.
Good afternoon. I think we've been here last year, August. We came here as a Nashville Metro Taxi Drivers Association with Cherry Lee, and he kind of tried to persuade you not to increase then. It was too increasing. We left here with the impression of this increase will not happen. I don't know how we got to this point, because when we left here, we had the impression that this increase would not happen. So as you see, as the tanker manager, so you see $560. When I was here last year, I showed you $428, from $271 a month to $428. The same people are doing the same thing. So you increased to over 100% where we were last year. And we lost 60% of our business to 3,000 Lyft and Uber drivers. That the director said to the councils, there would be no vehicle that he hasn't inspected, and there's no driver here he wouldn't approve. But they're out there. They're competing with us from Dixon County, Rutherford County, Wilson County, Sumner County. Come join us. I'll drive you. Seriously, I got a camera in the car. I will drive you. You see it all the plates. So this is really hammered us. We're dealing with pedicabs. How much is their insurance? Have we asked? Does anybody know? What kind of insurance do they need to have? The golf carts, are they safer than us? Is Uber driving mannequins, and are we driving real people? Let's be realistic. There is a war on driver here. And please, let's rewind the clock and go back to last year. We got companies, but we won't be able to handle and pay the fees that the city charges us at the end of the day. So, we won't be in business at the end of this year if this keeps on. Thank you.
Mr. Cordero Dunnigan.
Good evening. I'm Cordell Dunnigan, the assistant manager at Nash Vegas Cab. I would like to be representing Nash Vegas Cab, and I would like to voice my concern. As an assistant manager at Nash Vegas Cab, I've only been with them for about 3 months, and to see the infrastructure around Nashville grow tremendously, and to come from a bigger city than Nashville, I'm starting to see more and more residents in Nashville utilizing taxis and Ubers. As we're here to discuss the minimum liability insurance required by the state of Tennessee, to go from $25.50 to $330 to $100. I would like to basically say that as the new kids on the block, Nash Vegas Cab, I am imposing, by imposing this ordinance, it will force many of our independent drivers, such as and also our contractors, the taxi drivers, into a financial hardship. Many of our drivers' expenses already include weekly payments, monthly franchise fees, and also the airport and also insurance. Many of the drivers are saying that the insurance is extremely high, and we would like to forward the insurance rates to stay the same. Companies such as Uber and also Lyft, we also believe that these drivers should also abide by the same rules and regulations that we are here to abide by as well. We as Nash Vegas Cab would like to continue to provide excellent service, transportation service to the surrounding communities such as Nashville, Sumner County, Murfreesboro, and any other surrounding counties. I, Cordell Dunnigan, also Nash Vegas Cab, would like to thank you for your time and for hearing us out as well.
Thank you. Diddy Ely.
Good afternoon. My name is Diti Ely. I'm with the Magic Taxi, and I'm founder of Magic Taxi and president. For the increase and for the insurance, it's really difficult to us. I started driving in 1996, become a taxi driver. Since that, I was paying the insurance. Middle of, I think it was 2006, the insurance changed to the higher rate for the best rating. In my company, we see different style, which is we will prevent the, we prevent for the insurance rather than charging or extra money, which is the reason for the insurance is increasing is to happen a major accident. To avoid that, we will train our drivers, we will train ourselves, then we will, in that case, we will prevent the accident not to happen rather than happen accident. Again, I'm with the Magic Taxi. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Biniam Habti. Mr. Hopty or Hapty?
Good afternoon. Okay, my name is Biniam Hapte. Currently, I'm driving for a Nashville gas cab. As a carrier, I've been a pharmacy technician for almost a decade, and I did sold insurance company for about a couple of years with Primerica. I know what's a need, and I know what's the insurance business look like. When we speak about insurance, yes, it's a necessity to have insurance, but what's in it is what it matters. If the driver's insured, most of us are not insured. Just because of the 100, 300 limit is higher, we have to just look, what's covered? The 300 property damage? What's out there? How many cars do we have? What's the track record? Do we have, how many cars do we have that worth $300 or more? We can't just increase the insurance value. Are we working for America? Are we working for people? That's a question that we need to answer. Because today, for the last few years, we are in inflation, in a bad economy. There's a lot of drivers that they have a family, including me. When you increase our expenses, a lot of families is being hurted. The big question I have is, what's a track record to increase our premium? I don't see that. Just give us, whoever came with this kind of plan, just give us a track record. Hey, certain drivers, drove into the building, crash, $1 million, a building. Just such kind of track record. I always say we, cab drivers, we're a safe driver as much as we are on the road every day. Think of this. I always give this an example for regular people. I don't know if you guys in front of me don't drive a cab. You have a personal car, right? You probably feel like $50 or $30 a gas per week, but that's what we spend a day. That tells you that how much we're out there on the road, but we still are safe drivers. There's no way to increase our premium. There's no way to increase our insurance. It's just unfair. I wish we have a SBA here, the Small Business Administration Office. We have it here in downtown. We are in a small business. Help us. Let's move on. Don't hurt us by bringing any other, foreigner business like Uber and Fleet. Just make us better, and instead of bringing different companies to compete us. The taxi company, we can be better, but the law is at the office, the taxi commission office. And instead of they can make us better. Hey, we're going to increase. We need to do a little bit better business. They can. It's just a different foreigner business coming to compete our business, and we're still hurting. How many drivers are behind on the mortgage for the last few days, for the last few years? It's just unfair treatment. We are in an unfair market right now, so I don't see it's a fair thing to do to increase our premium or insurance coverage. Thank you very much.
Thank you. At this point, I've completed all of the requests to speak submissions, and we'll be now closing the.
There were a couple of folks that did not fill out a form. They just kind of waved to me. Would you allow them to speak?
Yes, that's fine. If you'll walk up and introduce yourself, please.
Honorable Commissioners, my name is Devin Bahat, and I'm from Quick Cab, and I cannot agree more than the previous people who came here. We really don't need any insurance increase at this point in time. Rather, we need to have insurance department of Metro look into the coverage of these drivers, because what they are paying and what is covered, we need to look at that particular format, that why they are paying so much and so little is covered. And we don't need any increase at this point in time. Thank you very much for letting me speak.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Petrelli wanted to add one additional thing. Again, it's up to the chair.
Mr. Petrelli.
Thank you I'd like to replace some of the misinformation with information about my company. I appreciate the opportunity to come up. First of all, we are well aware we compete against a monopoly, and that in terms of other requirements on insurance rating requirements, I think to the extent that they might be AM Best, they also exclude such names as Standard & Poor's, Moody's, and Fitch, which points, I think, to the monopoly, not to the rating category. I think as well that we have submitted independent information compiled by Florida State University that indicates that when we were in an independent analysis against Standard & Poor's, Moody's, Fitch, and AM Best, that their conclusion was that each company knows what they're doing and they tend to rate the same companies as secure. And I would respectfully submit that with respect to smaller independent companies, we were actually the first company to do that. We began that process in 1989. Up until that point, the AM Best company did not rate small companies, sir. And I think that you heard comments from Mr. Tarife that we understand small companies. I've worked at small companies, I've worked at big companies. We understand the analytics of their financial statement. We understand the importance of reinsurance, and we're interested in bringing those newer companies. And it sounds to me like if those newer companies are competitive in the marketplace, that would actually be of assistance to the owner-operators that are here now. So I would be pleased to answer any questions, but I will say this, that I know with certainty that our ratings on the A level out-survive companies at the B+ level. Companies rated A or better by Demotech outperform from a survival perspective those rated B+ by AM Best. And as you go up our rating scale, we hold our own at each comparable level of rating, our A prime versus a higher rating by them, and our A double prime versus a higher rating by them. We know what we're doing, and we'd love to help alleviate the insurance availability problem in Nashville and many other cities. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question real quick. Your ratings are A prime, A double prime.
Yes, sir.
Anything below A is a fail.
Everything below A is a matter of degrees of failure. Yes, sir.
Then AM Best is A minus, B plus, B minus, C. That's their rating scale, right?
A++, A+, A minus. Yeah, they have a much longer.
A minus, B plus, B minus on down.
Yes, sir.
So you're A or above, A prime, A double prime. Okay.
We call those stable ratings, and those are the ones we support. And
I understand. I just want to get the
A
terminology
prime, yes,
correct with the
yes, sir. We would have used the same rating scale, but in 1988, when we began promulgating our ratings, I got a letter from John J. Grillos, who's the attorney for the AM Best company, and he informed me that they had patented the and trademarked the alphabet, and that I could not use A or A+. So we use A and A prime and A double prime.
Thank you.
At this time, we're going to close the public hearing portion for reconsideration of taxicab Rule 7B, and now open for deliberation amongst the commission members so we can consider the matter.
When we changed and raised the levels of liability, I don't believe I ever even heard of Lyft and Uber at that time. I think the landscape in Nashville has changed considerably since we did that, since we made the change. And, oh, I'm so sorry. I believe that when we originally increased the levels of liability, that we had never heard of Lyft and Uber at that time. And I believe that the landscape in Nashville has changed considerably since then. Given that information, I personally believe that we should postpone this increase indefinitely until we figure this all out, until we see what happens, and until we are more, until we have more information. So, is that a motion? I would like to make a motion.
Wait, let's
I'll let other
I'd like to
people
hear from some of the other commission members before we
okay.
make motions. Because it's my understanding from Mr. Fields that Uber and Lyft, they will actually have higher limits, on minimum limits than currently than our cabs. Is that correct?
What we're going to be proposing, probably bringing next month, would be higher levels than we're talking about this. In fact, they would have $1 million policy. What we'd propose is $1 million policy when they're in operation. Again, it's certainly something we've been studying for months.
I know when we increased coverage last year to the 5,100 and then 50 for property, and also to have it later go up to 100 for single medical, 300 for entire medical coverage, and then 50 remain at 50 for property. I know we had this same kind of discussion amongst ourselves and heard from a lot of the same people who were not in favor of increasing the insurance. We met a second time and delayed the increase to 100, 350, and also heard again from the similar people who are against the increase. I mean, there's always going to be when you're paying for your coverage, the last thing you want to do is buy more coverage if you don't think you need it. At some point, I would imagine that rates or minimum coverage rates will have to go up even higher years from now. There's always going to be a resistance to having an increased level of insurance. I do think it's necessary for the minimums to raise. I do think there have been some very good points about changing the rating requirements necessary to allow coverage to the taxi cab industry. I do think that's something that we as a commission should reconsider, but I don't get to vote, but I would think that staying the course and keeping the minimums as they are and the rule in place as it is, with the exception of changing the rating requirements and possibly, if we do that, delaying for a few weeks this implementation that's about to occur on the 1st. But I think the rule 7B is a very good rule. It was a very good rule when we implemented it last year. And so I don't, despite Uber and Lyft coming into the community, which are going to be addressed separately, I think that these minimums are appropriate.
You mean the current minimums?
Yes.
Or the ones that we...
The minimums as stated in Rule 7B, I think, are appropriate.
That would be with the increase on September 1st to go into effect.
Yes,
okay.
I didn't mean to misstate that.
You know, there's never a good time for anybody to have to pay more for insurance. It's one of the more painful things to do in having a business. And I do appreciate and try to empathize with the cost to the individual drivers and to the companies. You know, we looked at, when we did pass Rule 7B, we looked at other cities, other municipalities, and what they were covering. And quite frankly, it's getting harder to imagine an accident, a serious accident, where medicals wouldn't be close to $100,000 for a single person, where the medicals couldn't be easily $300,000 for a carload of passengers and the driver. And then if two cars are totaled, cars today are running close to $20,000, $25,000. You know, you total out two of them, you're already going over just the minimums that we were talking about increasing. So I still see the need that we saw before for 7B for the increase to occur. However, I did hear something today that makes me reflect and suggest that maybe we ought to, if not postpone indefinitely, at least postpone for a period of time, the increase that's set to occur on September 1st to 100, 350. And that was by Mr. McAdoo, saying that there's not been enough time to evaluate the data yet. Frankly, I want to see what are accidents costing out there. I did get to see something today about what dollars are being paid out on premiums being paid in, and that was rather shocking to see. It's almost 100% today, at least for one carrier. But I like to look at numbers. You know, I feel when people say, I don't want to pay more for insurance. I feel that. I know that. I have a small business myself. But I also have to look at what's the risk to the public. This commission is responsible for protection of guests that ride in the cabs, and we are responsible for setting insurance rates that protect the public, to protect the guest. And I don't have what I call empirical data to look at here today to say this rate needs to go into effect September 1st, or that the 50, 150 is okay. I've heard suggestions, I've heard feelings, I've heard generalities, but I haven't seen anything that really tells me, okay, this is proof that we don't need to do it today, or this is proof we do need to do it today. My suggestion would be that we leave we amend 7B, and I would recommend that we take it in two parts, a vote on the rate increase and then a vote on the ratings for, whether to expand that and what ratings to use. But I would suggest that at least on the rate increase that we consider leaving the 50, 150 in effect at this time and put off for a period of time to get some data and ask people who are coming in opposing the increase to show me why I shouldn't vote for an increase to protect people that ride in the cabs. That we set it off for maybe 6 months to 6 months, I would say. Set it off and then revisit that.
So that's March 1st, 2015?
That would be my suggestion. That's not a motion yet, but that's a suggestion of how I'm feeling today.
Mr. Chairman, just as a point of order, if the commission chooses to make a change to 7B, I've been advised that they need to tell you why. We need to do something a little different.
No, I was just going to say, that is a vote that you all did take. That was action that was taken previously, and so if you're going to change that action, basically, it can be either a partial change, like a delay, I think would probably be more like an amendment, a complete replacement of what you did previously, I think would be a motion to rescind your prior action. Just so that in phrasing your motions when someone does make a motion, we thought that would be.
So you want us to amend it?
You could move to amend
the date and change the date.
Yes, you could amend the previous action the board took to have it be implemented beginning September 1 to a later date.
As chairperson, I think I would favor the amendment route. It seems less, it's like there's less steps involved, so.
I think that's what we did when we postponed the initial increase, or when we postponed it last time, we amended it too. So.
And to make sure I understand what we would do, what you were suggesting is what the commission would do is reconsider, leave it where it is, and then come back in March for another public hearing to talk about the increases at that particular moment, rather than make them automatic. So then you've got your information to make your decision then.
Sounds like a good suggestion.
Well, again, what I didn't want you to do is be in a position where you have to take action and it's going to be an automatic action if you really want to consider. If you want the action to take place, that's clear to the commission's authority. If you want to consider it after the data is collected, then at that point we could actually direct the insurer, the carriers, and others to provide additional information for a public hearing. I just wanted to make sure I was clear.
So what we could do is amend 7B to remove the mandatory increase to 100, 350, but put it on for public hearing on March.
Well, I think that's actually rescinding 7B. I mean, okay. It seems like the more direct course of action would be to amend Rule 7B by delaying the increase to March 1st, 2015.
That would make the public hearing in February.
Well, there wouldn't have to be any public hearing. It would be, I mean, we could have a public hearing if we want, but that would be a separate issue of what the actual rule would be going forward.
They're discussing the process.
Why wouldn't we rescind it and then revisit it after we have the information, the data?
Because we probably have to rescind the entire rule rather than just that one section. Is there input?
Yeah, sure. We were just discussing it as well. I think that there's maybe two things we're discussing, and maybe they're the same and maybe they're different, but one is amending the rule and one is amending or rescinding the action previously taken by the commission, from a kind of Robert's Rules of Procedure perspective. And I think at this point we're really probably talking about amending the rule. You have rulemaking authority under 2100 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws, and if you have new evidence before you that changes what you understood when you previously took action, I think based on that you could amend the rule, and that probably would not have any, there would be no time limit within which you would have to do something along those lines, whereas a motion to reconsider has very strict timelines. It has to be within 24 hours or within the same session. A motion to amend or rescind, we've argued that once action becomes final, maybe that's inappropriate. But I think in this case, maybe what we're really talking about is amending the rule based on new evidence that's become before the commission.
Well, I'll make a motion. I would make a motion to amend Rule 7B to reflect a change in the date for the increase of the premiums, and that new date would be March 1st, 2015. I would make that motion based upon new information provided to me today that there's been insufficient time to gather adequate data to, one, assess premiums for cab drivers, and to make a sound reasoning as to whether this ought to go into effect or not.
I second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Does anyone want to deliberate about the ratings minimum of B+ or higher on the AM Best scale?
Could we hear from Metro's Director of Insurance on any thoughts he has on demo tech?
Mr. Cobb is here today.
I'm D.C. Cobb. I'm the Insurance Director for Metro. And I guess you want to talk more about the equivalency of some of the other rating agencies as opposed to AM Best?
Well, directly Demotech, they're in front of us right now. They've stated that they, at A level or higher, that they're pretty strong. It represents 400 different companies. How would you compare them to, I guess, AM Best? Would Metro government eventually change to Demotech?
I'm not sure what Metro government's going to do with regard to the ratings, but I can tell you that the last time we talked about this, I did go back and do some spot checks on some companies to see where they landed as far as their ratings for Moody's, S&P, and some of the others, and some of the same companies landed on some of on different lists of rating agencies at different ratings. So it is necessary, I think, to have some sort of scale if you're considering using other rating agencies. There was a study done, but I don't think we're not at liberty to completely share that information yet, because we've just emailed Florida State regarding the study that they did. They did an independent study regarding the ratings, and it was a pretty good flowchart showing which rating is equivalent across the board with the different companies. And I think that is relevant in terms of if somebody does all of the research in determining what companies fit into which ratings and showing the strength of those companies, then I think it's okay to consider that.
Yeah.
Just to follow up on what Mr. Cobb was saying, I emailed the author of the Florida State University study that's been referenced, and to ask if we could have permission to rely on their study, because they requested in the article that permission be requested. From a copyright law perspective, it would probably be fair use because we're not using this for like a profit-making motive, but at the same time, out of courtesy, I wanted to contact her. And she advised that the study was kind of in progress, and so she wanted to talk to her co-author before she gave us that authorization to rely on it, because there, I guess could be changes to it in the future. So, it seems very reliable, but at the same time, we would kind of give you that caveat in terms of what the author said about it. So.
Did they have an idea on a time frame of when they'll be done?
I did not ask her that. She was preparing for a class and did not have a long time to speak with me.
I think the interesting part of the study was the idea, one of the questions that we had as a staff, and we have certainly spent a lot of time talking about it, is what does an A here look at this company and what does a B plus look at this company? And that, I think that's really what we're referring to is you can draw lines across saying an A at this company is a B plus at this company, or it's an A here, it's an A here, and it's an A here. And so I think that's primarily what we were talking about in terms of what's in that study. It does have a scale that describes that.
My thoughts are,
right, it was provided to you.
Mm-hmm. My initial thoughts are, hey, it brings in more companies, it helps the taxi drivers out. I'm all for that, but if we need to wait for that study to complete just to ensure the drivers themselves, the companies are taken care of, I don't mind waiting, but those are my thoughts. I don't mind more competition. Guess what? That lowers prices.
Right. I actually like the competition.
Thank you, Mr. Scott.
But I do appreciate wanting to know apples to apples and oranges to oranges. What's a prime versus a A plus or A minus and how they relate and where different companies fall. Because we're going to be asked not only to expand the services that are doing the rating, but we're going to be also asked to set a standard for each company, and S&P and more and these, and I'm looking at this charts that they have. And
okay, yeah. This was the one that we thought was most useful.
yeah. So I'd like to intelligently place a standard on the various companies.
Can I share would it be appropriate to share what we talked about in terms of what we think is equal based on what we've gathered? Well, what we think as a staff, what we think is that a B plus rating at AM Best, we think is equivalent to an A2 at Moody. We think that a at Demotech is equivalent to a B plus at AM Best. We think that an A at Fitch is equivalent to a B plus at AM Best, and then finally we think at Demotech an A is equal to a B plus at AM Best. Again, based on information that we've been gathering, it's certainly not something we wade into easily.
If we did make an amendment to the existing terminology, I would think we would have to put in AM Best B plus or the Demotech, correct? Just to ensure that we have, because there might be some companies that aren't with one of the rating agencies or in that scale.
And I think that was one of the issues again that Mr. Cobb raised with us is we don't want, if you decide to do that, we want to make sure that we're even based on the information that we had. So whatever, if AM Best is the standard or an equivalent, then we want to make sure we know what the existing equivalents would be.
So Mr. Cobb, when you went back and looked does that sound, what Mr. Fields just described, does that sound consistent with your random sampling?
My random sampling, yes, sir.
So A2 for Moody, A for Finch, A for Standard & Poor, A for Demotech would be equivalent to a B plus with AM Best.
Based on some of the spot checking, I only did a small sample. But
Right.
Yeah, some of the
Well, how small is this sample? 1 out of each, or
No,
5,
it was,
or what?
It was probably, I'm guessing there were about 15 or so, 10 to 15.
Out of each company?
No. Some of them fell in just one category, but then some of them were rated by 2 or 3 agencies, and so
Okay.
what I did is cross-reference them, is what I did. So if they were rated, let's say if they were rated by AM Best, S&P, and Moody, I looked where they fell on each one of them, and then there were different grades, of course, one, based on the grading system with that company, and then so I just, I cross-referenced them to determine what would be equal to AM Best.
Did you find any company that was rated by all of them?
I didn't see any that were rated by all of them. Well, not that I recall.
Mr. Fields, you got a recommendation on this?
Well, again, based on, I'm not an expert on insurance. I am very confident in the Department of Law and our Director of Insurance. I asked the question, would the public safety be protected if we allowed other carriers to come into Nashville that would be rated by somebody other than AM Best? The response that I got, and I'm not going to try to speak for them, was that we did not see that that the public safety would be jeopardized. Again, our job is public safety. It's not about, we hear a lot about competition and protecting competition or helping competition. Our real goal is to make sure that people are transported safely, and insurance is a huge part of that. So again, based on what I understand in talking with insurance, we were not uncomfortable if a company such as Standard & Poor or Fitch or Moody or Demotech were to rate a company that would come to Nashville. As it is now, if they wanted to operate in Nashville, they'd have to go to AM Best to be rated.
Does this cause an issue with the Nashville airport and the rest of the city having an A rating with AM Best?
I can only answer on the airport part is they have certain standards they require, but they also accept what this commission establishes is something they accept as those operating on their property, or at least that's been the practice.
Just a clarification, a couple of people have stated that Metro uses AM Best for its insurance requirements, and basically when I were just talking, and I think what they're referring to, and I don't mean to speak for anybody, is that Metro's purchasing department in making purchases on behalf of the city requires that rating in its contracts, and that you'd have to ask the purchasing department in terms of, why they came to that conclusion. But I don't know that that's necessarily exactly the same calculus that goes into making that decision that goes into making the decision based on the protection of the public safety that Billy was just talking about. And I can't speak for the airport authority either.
Well, it sounds like that the commission is leaning towards opening up the rating requirement minimums to other agencies such as Demotech, S&P, Moody, and Fitch. But it sounds like we're wanting some type of confirmation that the study is that we want to rely upon is in fact reliable. Is that right? That discusses and compares the various ratings.
I mean, if that's the sole thing that you're relying on, that was just the warning that the professor gave me, so I wanted to pass that along for your consideration in terms of what weight you accord it. But I think you could also rely on Mr. Cobb's testimony about his own random sampling.
Fields, looking at page 34 of that study, going across from good and strong over. I'm seeing, of course, Demotech is A. The top level there is B plus B. So S&P could be A or A plus, so both of those fall in the same. Even an A minus by S&P would be in that good, strong. I was just wondering why you chose A for S&P when it could be anywhere from A minus to A plus.
I think we just took it because, again, it went, what we would say is A plus, A or better. In other words, so A plus would be adequate. A is,
Maybe it could be A minus or better, I think is what he's saying.
Oh, I see what
Which
you're saying.
could possibly
And then
be correct.
Like Moody is A1, A2, A3. You know, I didn't know if there was a policy behind alleviating A minus, A3, and A minus.
yeah, I think it was through conversation with Mr. Cobb and Metro Legal is where we landed on those particular, if you wanted to see, because
He wants to be equivalent.
I was asked, you know, what would be equivalent, and that's where we had asked them what we thought would be equivalent.
Okay. It does look like the B plus requires an A, A2, and A from S&P, Moody, and Fitch, respectively.
Well, I know at this time, I know we've heard from Mr. Petrelli at Demotech, so he himself has stated that the A rating at Demotech would be at a minimum equal to the B plus rating at AM Best.
Actually, the A is equivalent to, yeah, the B plus and A and best.
So I guess where I was going with that is that we would certainly be within our bounds to rely on his statement if we wanted to make a change to the rating requirement, at least with Demotech for the time being, while we await to hear more about the other three remaining agencies.
So it's going to be an amendment to the rule? Again, another one?
That it certainly could be handled that way.
Okay.
Can I ask Mr. Fields one other question before we entertain a motion? Mr. Fields, did you guys, apparently you've had some discussions with Metro Legal and Metro Insurance. Was there any discussions about approval by the director on any of these carriers on a case-by-case basis?
Yeah, we contemplated the idea that you could allow the director to make some determinations about what was equivalent. We also, in the conversation, thought that it might be more appropriate for the commission for us to show you what we think is equivalent, and you go on the record based on our conversations and any information you might gather today from the public hearing.
Thank you.
Is there anyone considering a motion or formulating a motion?
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion that amends Rule 7B that will state all insurance carriers providing this coverage must have an AM Best rating of B plus or better. And the second item is that we will have a Demotech rating of A or higher.
I second that.
Are we allowed to have a discussion on that first?
I'll rescind my motion.
I would recommend that we include the language that the company must be licensed to do business in the state of Tennessee, as is already required for AM Best.
Okay. Would you like to make the motion?
Thought it was already second.
Oh, second. Chair.
There is a motion on
Well,
the
you
table.
rescinded your motion.
I
So
did, I
the
said
motion's
that.
been rescinded.
Okay.
Do you rescind the second too?
I rescind the second.
Withdraw. It's actually
Withdraw.
Motion withdrawn.
Well, so this was provided to me previously as a proposal, so it's very similar to what was already put on the table, just with that extra language that I would make a motion that we amend Rule 7B to reflect that the insurance company must be licensed to do business in the state of Tennessee and have a B+ or better rating from AM Best, or A or greater from Demotech.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passes. So, Mr. Fields, if I understand correctly, we're going to be having another public hearing at some point prior to March 1, 2015.
What I think the rule as it stands today, I think you have amended the rule that, and I probably cannot recite it back, but I think what it's going to basically say is effective on March 1st, 2015, all licensed taxi cabs are to have liability insurance coverage of 100, 350. You still have in place on March 1st, 2014, all licensed taxi cabs must carry uninsured motorist insurance coverage of 25, 50, 15. And then all insurance carriers must be licensed to do business in Tennessee if they're providing the coverage, and then it would be an AM Best rating of B+ or better, and or Demotech rating of A or better. Yeah. Yeah, the only thing that's going to change is the limits would actually go into effect
Right.
on March 1st automatically.
I understand. Well, that
So if you ask, if you're directing me now to hold a public hearing in February prior to March 1st, then we would have the meeting. It'd be the 26th or 27th of February, I suspect. We would have that meeting. Again, the only caveat we would have is, in the industry, it's been my impression, they can talk about it more than I can, pushing a public hearing that late prior to an increase going into effect, they're going to have to begin the work in advance to make this go into effect. And many of them, I suspect, they haven't told me this, I suspect that was one of the things we said, that they've already, because of the previous rule, they were prepared on Monday for it to go into effect. That was the reason I was questioning, were we going to make it go into effect on March the 1st, which is what you passed,
Right.
or would we revisit it at a date certain to gather the information?
Well, I don't think we have to have it revisited at a date certain unless there's a request from the taxi cab companies to have a public hearing. What I wanted to make sure is if that does occur, that meeting addressed the issue that was raised by Mr. McIndoe, which is there hasn't been enough time to make sure that if there is going to be a rate increase, that the premium reflects the risk and not just some made-up number.
Okay. Again, we'll have to depend on the carriers to provide that information in terms of what they've discovered through their actuaries and other auditors that would develop that kind of information.
Is there already historically a public hearing in February?
Not historically.
Okay. When's the horse-drawn carriage one?
It does not have to have an annual hearing. The only annual hearing you have to have are to consider additional taxi cabs, and you have to have a emergency record zone hearing annually. And they do not have to be on specific dates. The last 2 years, the last 2 years, we've had hearings for taxi cabs in January, and you had the record in June. Again, one of the things we'll be approaching prior to the end of the year is, when do you want to hold those hearings? If you want to, and that might be something to take into consideration, is if this is still on the table, when do you have the taxi cab hearing?
Right.
So make absolutely clear, because there was some confusion. On March 1st, 2015, the insurance ratings are going to go from where they are today, 50, 150, to 100, 350. The other change is...
It's effective immediately, which is the insurance rating requirement.
Correct. And then Demotech a carrier that is rated by Demotech with a rating of A or better is now available, could be used by taxi cab and meet the rule of the commission.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if Mr. Fields is asking for a little more input from the industry, if we could already request, we're already requesting the next public hearing in February before this goes in automatically. If we could, 6 months is not enough time. If you guys could give us 12 months and then let the local people that's licensed in Tennessee give you all the information that you require on the amount of accidents in a year's time, and seeing what the payouts are and seeing what's going over our limitations and what's not coming anywhere close to the limitations of the amounts of coverage we have, 12 months, and then get that input from them before automatically increasing these limitations. That's what we're asking for. I mean, that's...
Yeah.
Well, at this point, we've already ruled. I mean, I certainly understand your concern, and that will be addressed at the hearing, presumably prior to March 1st, 2015.
Public hearing in February before you automatically increase the limitations.
Well, I believe
we
there's
need clarification on
right. I believe there's probably some formal request that you need to make to Mr. Fields, but presumably you will do that, and I'm sure it will get set for hearing.
Okay. Thank you.
Next item on our agenda, we have some other vehicle for hire, new company applications. There's a number of applications listed here, Mr. Fields.
You do have several that are here. I would share them with you. AD Limousine, Cumberland Limo, Nanny Limousine, Nashville Limousine, Reliable Black Car Service, Roadrunner Limousine, Samuel RF, Tennessee National for Hire, and Wise Coaches Shuttles. All of them are in order and would meet the requirements. However, I would like for you to take a moment or two to separate Tennessee National out. I would like for you to visit with them just a few moments prior to their approval.
Right.
So all the other ones are in order.
All the paperwork's appropriate, and prior to any issuance of certificate, we would recheck everything from insurance to the car inspections and everything else.
How many limo services has this put on the streets in Nashville?
I don't have that number.
Just roughly.
Roughly, let me take back to the office. Would you get, how many limousine companies would you say we have now?
200? This would add another 9. Okay.
Is there a motion with respect to the new company applications listed here besides Tennessee National for Hire?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
AD Limo, Cumberland, Nanny, Nash Limo, Reliable Black Car Service, Road Limousine, Samuel RF, and Wise Coach Shuttles.
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Tennessee National is here. If you would indulge me, if they could come forward, please.
Yes. Are you Mr. Bashir Grove?
Yes, sir.
Right. Hello.
How are you?
Would you like to make a statement about your application?
I would like to be approved.
Anything you'd like to add to that?
If you guys have a question for me?
Go ahead, Mr. Fields.
Mr. Bashir's former cab driver in Nashville. He certainly is aware of the rules. One of the issues that we've had, and he and I have talked about it very frankly, and he has been cited multiple times for right or wrong, and I'm not prepared to indict him on anything. He operates a company that's called Tennessee National Cab. They have been in Nashville. Their offices are outside of the county, but they do want to. He came to me and said, "How can I become legal?" I described to him there were 3 or 4 ways he could become legal. with everything that in order to become a taxi cab company. He's opted to request to become a limousine company. I advised him at that particular moment that you have to lose his top light, you have to lose any meters, you have to lose any reference to taxi cabs and anything else. He could not do street hails, he couldn't sit on taxi cab stands. He would have to follow all the rules of the livery that's out there. He is committed that he can do that. By the same token, because we've had some issues, he and I have talked, and I told him I suspected there may be a probationary period just to make sure that we were all working on the same level. Have I said that correctly, do you think?
More, I would like to add it in Tennessee National Cab is based in Williamson County, and we are legal and we are legit. And we don't do illegal business in Davidson County. We normally pick up in Brentwood and Williamson County. Top 2 destination, either downtown Nashville or airport. So lately, few police were hassling on us, and I come to Mr. Phil. I said, "While we are getting this citation, we're from for another county, and we're not picking up hassling." I said, "It's been reported. You guys been picking up." So we would like to, based on the request for Mr. Phil, we would like to get for additional for Tennessee National for hire, which is not going to be a taxi. It did not have a top light and meter. So at least we could operate our existing business from Williamson County to here.
Were you cited by the police for picking up a passenger in Davidson County?
Not, I know.
No. Have you ever picked up a passenger in Davidson County?
When I was a taxi driver, yes.
Taxi driver for?
In Nashville.
Oh, in Nashville. Okay. And you understand the rules of the delivery service?
Very much so.
Okay. I move for approval.
What kind of car are you going to be driving?
I will be the owner, so more likely I will drive a van.
A van?
Yes.
You suggested a probationary period.
But if you could make me taxi, it's even much better. Could drive. If you could make a taxi, which only will let me to drop in Davidson County, I will not pick it up. Because I serve for bigger community in Williamson County. So now, to drop only in Davidson County will force me to remove my top light and the meter. It's a little unfair to Williamson County residents. But at least to come clear, based on what he suggested, he said take it off your top light and do as a odometer.
I've been advised that I should have read the rules a little closer. Once he's licensed, assuming you approve him, if he commits a problem, then you could bring him back for disciplinary action, which would then allow you to place probation. There is not a provision that would allow you to put him on probation to start with.
Okay.
So he would start with a very clean slate that we would be visiting regularly.
Thank you so much.
I move for approval. Oh, sorry.
If I hear correctly from Mr. Grove, he's already operating a taxi service in Williamson County, and periodically will bring passengers to downtown, and then your plan would be to remove your top light at that point and pick up those passengers and as a private livery vehicle and drive them back to Williamson County?
And that is giving me the advantage. Before I was not picking up no customer, just dropping in. So Phil advised me, I'm increasing my business. It might hurt some other people, but to me it's advantage for me.
How many vehicles do you have?
Now we have 12.
How many?
12 vehicles.
12?
12.
Yes.
How many have lights on?
They all have it because we are based for another county.
So how many you have without lights? None?
2 of them so far. We were preparing to put it on service when we get approved for here.
So this one, for this company, we're approving one, I would assume, because there's only one driver. Is there a driver application also?
The way it works, once the company's approved, the vehicles then have to come in for inspection. They have to meet the less than 5 years, newer than 5 years, and less than 10 years old. Then they have to be inspected, have to have a mechanical inspection in order to come into service. So you can start a company with one car, but then it becomes an issue of staff involvement to add additionals.
Right.
Ask if somebody else wants to make a motion.
Go Anyone would like to make a motion with respect to Mr. Grove's application?
I move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Next item on our agenda, we've got a new driver application from Kenneth Gaddy. Mr. Fields.
Mr. Gaddy's present.
He's fishing without a license.
Got a fair stones, 77 Social Security fraud.
Yes, where you put in his money?
Mr. Gaddy's in front of you today, and in filling out his application, he failed to list a charge that dates back to 1977. It would not be anything that would preclude, however, based on your request, since it was left off, he needs to appear. Everything else is in order.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Next item on our agenda, we have a new driver application from Mr. Nathaniel Story. Mr. Fields.
1 second here.
Oh, wait a minute. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Mr. Story, we'll go ahead and go out of order, but I've skipped an item on our agenda. But go ahead, Mr. Story. We'll hear from Mr. Fields and consider your application.
Mr. Story was originally to appear in January. That was moved back, and he did not appear. I wanted you to review his record. There was some domestic issues involved, and I wanted to make sure that you were aware of those. He did not have anything that I'm aware of that would preclude him from being a driver. However, because of the nature of it, you've also asked that he be present. That dated back in 2012.
How many times have you gone through anger management?
Ma'am?
How many times have you gone
3.
through? 3 times you've gone
Yes,
through
this
anger
last one
management?
is the one that helped me.
Why is the last one the one that helped?
I just paid attention more.
How do we know that?
Just giving you my word, sir.
2012, your aggravated assault, what was the outcome of the case?
It got dropped down to an assault, and I had to do a year's probation and anger management.
So down to a misdemeanor assault and then a year of probation?
Yes, sir.
And you've had one case already expunged, right?
No, sir. They told me that I had to go back and forth in front of the judge to do it, and then when I got this last one, they told me that it would never come off.
Okay.
Are you still expecting to work for, I'm sorry.
West Nashville
West
record?
Southside Towing, sir.
I'm sorry, West Southside of the new application.
Yes, sir.
And
Are
this
they
is-
here?
Yes.
What's it called when it's a record service?
Hi.
Hi.
Would you introduce yourself?
Bonnie Maker with Southside Towing.
You want to hire Mr. Story?
I'm sorry?
You want to hire Mr. Story?
Yes, we do.
Is this for non-consent?
Well, we're both, so we are a non-consent, but he's going to be our driver for medium and heavy duty.
So typically, he would not be doing non-consent with medium and heavy.
Pretty much, no.
We don't get a lot of business in the
Right.
medium to heavy. on
He's going to be a
that.
driver for tow calls.
You know his record? You know his criminal record?
I've reviewed some of it, yes, and we've talked about it.
Mr. Story, you ever worked as a wrecker before?
Sir?
You ever worked as a wrecker before?
Yes, sir. That's all I know how to do.
Where'd you do that?
I spent 8.5 years at West Nashville Record.
Why'd you leave?
Because I got denied my permit. And I just I had so much going on that I just made some bad choices
Why were you denied a permit?
because of my charge in 2012.
Did this commission deny you a permit?
It was because I had to come in front of the board and I never showed up.
I see. That's what you.
Why didn't you show up?
I had so much going on with my personal life that I just couldn't concentrate on anything. But all that's behind me now.
All right, Mr. Story, I just want to ask you a couple questions about who the victims were in these cases, okay? 2011, you get an order of protection, you're put out of your home.
Yes, sir.
Who was the victim?
Sandra Story, which is now my ex-wife.
All right, 2012, you're arrested for aggravated assault, and there's an arrow that leads down to some explanation. Reason for this, she said I hit her. Who's the she?
My ex-wife.
Same lady?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then 2013, seatbelt was a ticket. 2013, suspended for not paying. Your license was suspended, is that correct?
Yeah, the reason they suspended it because I never paid the court cost. I didn't know that I had an old court cost.
All right, and then 2012, you're put on that 1 year, is that the same probation we're talking about?
Yes, sir. It was
for
from
the aggravated
2012
assault?
until 2013, and I paid all my fees, and I actually got off a month early.
26 weeks of anger management?
Yes, sir. I have all the paperwork right here.
And in that anger management class, when they asked you to speak up and talk about what you did you?
Yes, sir.
Did you have any problems with the instructor there?
No, sir.
Or some of the other people that came in there and spoke? Because they're tough.
Oh, they're tough, yes, sir.
Why do you say they're tough?
Because they're hard on you, so you'll learn from what you've done wrong.
They start to get you mad?
Yeah, but, you know, you have to overcome that.
Okay.
You know, you're there for help.
And then you got off probation successfully November 18th, 2013?
Yes, sir.
Paid all your fees and costs?
Yes, sir.
So if I read this correctly, you really have 3 incidences going back to 2002 where you had the anger management, domestic assault, misdemeanor conviction?
Yes, sir.
And then you had an order of protection in 2011, then 2012, a felony that was reduced to a misdemeanor.
Yes, sir.
What's your relationship with your ex-wife now?
The only time we talk is about the kids.
And you do have a daughter, obviously.
I have 2 of them.
Had any other problems with any other women?
No, sir. No, sir. We was together 20 years, so.
I'm just concerned about the protection of other women that might be in the...
I'm actually
the heavy
engaged
trucks,
to get
whatever.
married next year. So I have moved on with my life.
Thank you. Let me ask the questions.
That's it.
Is there a motion with respect to Mr. Story's application?
I'll take a chance on Mr. Story. I'll make a motion to approve his record driver permit primarily because someone from South Street's here, or South Side is here to speak on his behalf and is aware of his record, if not fully. She is now.
I'm not intimidated a bit by what
I
happened in
second.
this past.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Good luck.
Aye.
Thank you,
Motion
sir.
passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item, going back, we've got request to consider whether to rescind action on Mr. Jesh Yaffe's application, which we denied last month. Mr. Fields.
He's not present. Oh, you are?
No, he's not present.
Correct.
He was going to work for us.
Yeah.
So he told me to talk to y'all. We don't know the way out.
He knew to be here today, correct?
Yes.
There's no action for you to take. He made the request. You denied he would be eligible to come back in front of the commission in October.
I remember getting the email that you forwarded, yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking at one of them here. So.
All right, next item on our agenda, we've got a new driver application for Mr. Hassan Abu Bakr.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Mr. Fields?
Mr. Abu Bakr is here. When he filled out his application, there were a couple of things he left off. None of them would preclude him from being a driver. The oldest charge he has is in 2000. I mean, the latest charge he has in the year 2000, but they date, and he had back to 84. None of them, again, would prohibit. He just did not disclose them again 14 years ago.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
That concludes our agenda. Is there any other business, Mr. Fields?
Any additional business?
Is there a motion to adjourn? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Gotta get out of
From
town.
the courthouse quickly. Traffic is about to become.
I was just gonna
Yeah.
say, I wanna get out of town before that traffic comes in. What were you doing here today, Carl?